And so the trade imbalance is bound not to favor us. You import rice, you import sugar, you import milk. The big question is, what do you do with your population when they wake up from sleep? Meanwhile, you're crying about unemployment and crime and disenchanted youths. How did India and China do it? Deal with the structure of your finance and increase facilities for production. Sort out your electricity, and then you won't have to buy too much. You will buy turbines and aircraft, things you can't make yet, but there's no reason in the world to buy toothpicks and tomato paste and vegetable oil and rice. A very simple way of looking at it.
Right, thank you very much. Can I take a look at the second question? That's the only question for this panel. Yeah. Now, well, since I see Nigerian banks, I can immediately decide that.
What are Nigerian banks doing to tap into single-digit financing space through developmental financing institutions?
I don't think there's need to go too far.
Ahmed Damilola.
Well, look, let me first tell you that good Nigerian banks have actually no problem accessing funds from developmental agencies. However, the reason it's not likely to come to this sector, I'll tell you very truthfully, when they give you that money, the risk is not on the project, the risk is on the bank. So if there's a default, the bank is the one that has to pay. So if you are going into a sector that is still very risky and hasn't been de-risked, even if the bank accesses developmental agency funds, it's not likely to give it to you because they are the primary obligor of those funds.
Right. Interesting. Sorry, perhaps we'll take,
I just wanted to add a point on that because it's always the issue of the interest rate, and it's some point that we have been discussing with the government. It's quite clear that, and I think that Segun mentioned it, until the risk-free rate is at 12%, no bank can lend at a lower cost than that. They have to add a margin. So the key element in terms of the macro, and I think that things are moving in the right direction. The inflation now is in the range of 8 to 9%. We hope that with inflation going down, we will see also the risk-free rate going down, and in turn the bank reducing. That being said, we know that the market is competitive. Banks are lending to large corporations at a lower rate because they are trying to tackle this market. So there is also a need for the bank to be more competitive, to feel the pressure. And one area that we hope to work with the government first is to help establish this long-term financing by mobilizing resources that are available through bond issuance, through using part of the pension fund, but also to allow more transparency in the way the rate is structured. So we are proposing to put some kind of consumer facility information center that will force the bank to provide a little bit more information in actually how much are their costs. So in other words, for example, how much the lack of electricity indeed impacts the operating cost of the bank. We don't know. They said, well, cost of electricity is high, hence we have to cover that and go to, let's say, 21%, 22%. So I think that there is an effort that needs to be done by the government on the macro side, but there is also an effort to be by the bank to, one, be more efficient, and also be more less risk adverse in going to these frontier markets such as agriculture.
Right. We'll take one more question.
I actually have 3 more here to make it faster. I'll quickly read them from here if you don't mind.
All right.
The first one to the CEO of GT Bank and the Commissioner of Finance. To attract funding for PPP projects, what should be the upper limit of land as an equity in the funding structure for financing a project in collaboration with the state? What equity should land attract that will be attractive to international and local investors?
The truthful answer is it depends. You have to take the project on its own face value, the size of it, what the cash flows coming up. There's no hard and fast rule as to how much gearing you can put on a project. It depends the prospect and how strong the cash flows will be.
All right. The Commissioner of Finance.
Yes. to echo what Shadow said, it does depend on the individual project. But having said that, I'm not wanting to steal the fire of what they're going to do this afternoon. Mitros City, which will be launched this afternoon, is a PPP project where the government has provided land as equity. And as you said, it depends on a number of factors. So I think the answer to the question, the person that's asking the question is, let's see your projects. Let's see what you want to do. And then we can package things or structure things in such a way that banks have their parameters, what percentage they will take as equity, what percentage they will accept land as equity, and what percentage they'll accept as debt. Each project differs, but what I think we're trying to push is the way of thinking, that rather than coming to government to buy from or to regulate, come to government to partner.
Right.
I think that's what
Well, we'll take one more question.
Just one more. I'll choose this one from the Deputy Governor of your state, Abeokuta. There's one important factor that discourages agricultural production in almost all states of the Federation. That is storage of agricultural products. How do we encourage our farmers by reducing the percentage of perishable goods on our farms?
Sorry, can I? Thank you.
Well, there are many ways of doing that. The governments have been setting up grain silos for the grains. Those, if you dry them well and you put them in the silos and you keep aerating them, they'll stay. But if it is perishable things like tomatoes and bananas and so on, you need specially designed structures. You don't need to freeze vegetables. You keep them at 12 degrees centigrade. And if you're going to harvest fruits for export, for instance, in Nigeria in particular, you must harvest before 6 o'clock in the morning, or maybe before 8 a.m., when the ambient temperature is still very low. And then you put them together, you have to package them properly. You have to wash them and clean them up, like President Fox said. The food market in the world is very competitive and the quality demanded by the rest of the world is very high. If you don't have them in those conditions and you ship them outside, they are likely to take your things and dump them in the sea. But cold rooms are not cheap. If you're going to set up a cold room and run a generator, then your profit is going in diesel. So we're still back to what we said earlier. Basic infrastructure, electricity especially, is something that we must deal with very quickly. Otherwise, you should be able to take your fruits, if you have an arrangement with the, say, fruit market in London, which opens at about 3 o'clock in the morning, when commercial planes are landing at Heathrow and in Gatwick. I've been in those markets once. I got there at about 4 in the morning and the place was a beehive of activities. I saw fruits from everywhere except my beloved country called Nigeria.
Oh, well, never mind.
And yet, our mangoes are sweeter than the mangoes from Mexico. and the Cameroons, the West Indies, the Mexicans had fruits and vegetables coming in. Nigeria had nothing in that market. Right. That's where we're heading, and that's why I think Ogun State, so close to airports all over the place, has a future. And I will tell you this, the biggest fortunes in this country are yet to be made. They are to be made from places like here and the rest of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Right.
Dr. Salami.
Let me...
Dr. Salami, please. I have been instructed to just ask one more question, please.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Now, there's a view that I'd also like to take on this issue of storage and from the World Bank.
Yes, I mean, I'm coming back to the point that I made earlier, that you need to look at the value chain. And what we see now is you have more and more intermediaries. It's not just for the farmers. You need to see how to aggregate, but also create a market, because products stored properly has value and actually allow you also to mobilize financing. So again, this is one area where we've been working with both the Ministry of Trade and Investment and the Ministry of Agriculture to organize a warehouse and also develop a system of warehouse receipt where you can, with your receipt, mobilize financing. And I think that is already working in a few value chains, maize, we start seeing that here, even sorghum. So I think that the question is well taken. It's not just for the preservation of the good, but to organize the market and increase the value added that they can get, and also make this receipt an element that allows to mobilize really resources for the sector.
Right, thank you.